Welcome, everybody, to the Arch City Poker Podcast. My name is Tony, alongside Nick. We own, operate, and run ArchCityPoker.com. And we're going to have a little bit of a different perspective today. And along with us, we have our good friend Paul. And Paul plays Live Low Stakes alongside of us. And Paul, introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Paul. I think I'm one of your first guests on the podcast.
Absolutely. Yep. Paul's going to be joining us today. We're going to be talking about a lot of the same things that we talk about in our traditional podcast. But I also think, Nick, it's important to get a different perspective. And I think Paul is going to really help us bring that. If you didn't catch last week's episode, go ahead, check out episode 25. It's already loaded up on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe. And if you're brand new to Arch City Poker, head on over to ArchCityPoker.com, where we have tons of No Limit Texas Hold'em and Pot Limit Omaha content for you to consume. And as we begin this podcast, I just want to say, Paul, thank you for taking the time to join us. And I think it's going to be pretty exciting. I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation to kind of hear how you approach the game, how you think about the game, maybe some of your experiences playing live low stakes. But yeah, Nick, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Excited to get Paul's take on whatever, because it's always fun to chat with him, so it should be a good time.
Yeah, Paul, so if we're to kind of peel the curtain back and just think about you as a poker player, you as a maybe tournament player, what kind of games do you play? Do you play PLO? Do you play Hold'em? Do you play tournaments? What kind of things do you like? And kind of give us your take on maybe how you approach the game a little bit.
Well, I play pretty much everything low stakes. But Pot Limit Omaha, that's probably my favorite game to play. Play the good old-fashioned two-card no limit a lot. Play low to mid stakes, mostly have most of my life. Also dabble in high-low split pot games, things like that. Started playing way back in the day of the glory days online. So I started playing
Yeah.
the fun times and Poker Stars and Full Tilt and all that good stuff. So pretty much played every game on there like a total degen, and a lot of fun stories about running it up and losing it all back in those days. But yeah, I play just about everything. Play tournaments, play cash, mostly cash player, but I do like playing tournaments. Have played tournaments a little more recently. Had a little success, so just kind of brings the bug, so that's kind of what's more fun. As soon as you get a nice deep run, everything seems a lot more fun. So instead of the slodge or the daily grind that is trying to grind out tournaments and busting out 98% of them all the time.
And your local room runs a quarterly series, and you took one of those down, is that right?
Yeah, I got lucky. Yeah, got lucky, and I think there was about 170 players in there recently, and took one of those down. So got pretty lucky.
Still a big achievement. You got a fantastic award for it, and I think it's pretty cool. I think anytime that somebody can win a tournament that actually has an award associated with it, I think they're already doing a pretty good job. Is there, from your experience, do you approach live low stake, maybe tournaments, a different way than you maybe approach cash games? Or when you go inside of a tournament, how do you kind of approach them?
If I'm playing a tournament, it's more about, because it's an open field, right? So I don't get to choose who's at my table. I don't get to kind of curate how things are going along with it. I'm just going to get in a table. So I'm going to try to play the best, I wouldn't say GTO, but the best way I know how, and never really give up any edge. Now, differently when I play cash, as I've played with Nick a lot, and you too, some, Tony, you can see that there's definitely some times where I'm giving a little edge back. I might give maybe a touch too much action here or there, but I know that that's going to benefit me a little bit further down the road. So, if I'll be a guy that throws a straddle on, or maybe say Nick has the straddle on him to his direct left, I might throw a blind open. He's straddling to 10. I might just blind open to 20. Just because I know that with my personality type and everything else that comes with that, I'm going to garner a lot more than $20, in the future. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm buying a little bit of a table image in that way. And it just makes it more fun. I mean, poker's supposed to be fun, right? It's what we all started doing it. We thought this is fun. We probably were really competitive people, so we're trying to be competitive. We're having fun. We're doing all this stuff. Like, there's nothing worse than a game that has, you know, 8 backpacks and 8 headsets, and it's just, and everyone wants to talk to you about how they're going to randomize their decisions. Like, it's awful. Like, no one wants to play poker like that.
That's a good point. Actually, I want to dive back into something that you brought up that I kind of something that I'm not even particularly skilled in, and that's like developing a table image that also drives you action. And Nick, when you play, is that something that you've done in the past? Have you purposely tried to make sure that you are communicating in a way that maybe gives you more action down the road? I know that for myself, I wear a headset and oftentimes pretty quiet at the table just because there's a lot of things that I like to think about. And a lot of times there's not even music in my headset. I just like the blankness of what it creates to let me go through my process. But for you, Nick, is it like that, or what do you like to do?
Yeah, I mean, Tony, you and I have talked about that before where I think that it's not mandatory, I think, for a player to be like overly social. And I don't even know if like overly social is the right way to put it, but just like I think that live poker it is a social setting. And so like I think it's good if you do at least talk a little bit to the players around you, like at least be, I don't know, somewhat social, if you will. I don't know if it's mandatory that you have to like, be the most talkative guy there, or like Paul was saying, where like you don't have to like put on a straddle if you're the only guy doing it. But these kind of little subtleties, if you will, like the little things that we can do that can possibly benefit us down the road with, like plus EV, if you will, they definitely can help. Like I think that building up an image is something that we've talked about on this platform for a long time. And I used to be, I think, more of a believer in it back in the day. I think now, like, I view it as, I think that if you have the extremes, if you will, like, I think if you play maniacally aggressive, or if you're like a super nit, I think when it's that noticeable, I think the players will, like, I guess try to like I don't know if they try, but like they'll just kind of naturally like adjust a little bit. They won't adjust in the right ways, of course, like we've talked about that a lot over on the site and on this platform. But if it's like something in the middle, I'm not sure they care all that much what you're doing. But if you're like doing things, and like Paul is, and this is one of the main reasons we brought him on, guys, is that him and I have talked about like kind of soft skills, we call it, for like a long time. And if you are able to chat it up with the table, if you're able to like basically build this image that you are giving a lot of action, but like you're doing it in a skillful way. Is that like how you would put it, Paul? Like I think like you're doing it in a way where like you're building this image, but it is perceived to be closer to reckless than what it really is. And if you want to touch more on that, like you can go ahead and explain kind of what I'm talking about here.
I'm kind of more like my biggest thing is when you talk about soft skills and we talk about it, and like you said, Tony, you're more of a just kind of the headset guy. The thing is, you have to be yourself. I mean, there's just no way you can't. If I walked into the table and I tried to just put a headset on and not talk to anybody, people would call the doctor because they know that, you know. Um, but the thing, and also the same thing, like Tony, if you just tried to come in and be like, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" and chit chat and throwing jokes out and stuff, people know you're not going to be genuine. So you have to be yourself. But when I talk about giving a little action and get a little action, like I have a pretty good idea what baseline great poker should be. Obviously, you guys are friends of mine. I've gone through you and with the Arch City Poker site and did a lot of work with those. So I have a good idea where it's supposed to be. But the thing is, I know that if I might give up 4 or 5 big blinds early in a pot, but on the river, my jamming frequencies are going to be pretty close to good. They're going to be pretty close to bluffing and value and things like that. So I feel like it makes it easier for me to kind of give up some stuff here or there early on in streets and early on in tables when it comes to like value money, to where I know that I'm going to play at a decent baseline later on, especially on river spots where that's where you're going to garner all your money anyways. I think we all know that turn and river is where all of your win rate's going to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would even
So
say that when there's people playing at a table and I can hear them from another table, I know from my perspective, the first thing I want to do is figure out, well, what are the stack sizes of the people that I can hear? And is it somebody that I should consider moving to? And that's not often associated with those players being particularly good at whatever game it is that they're playing. So I think for you, if the way I understand it is like you can generate the action, you can get the table to loosen up, be more talkative, have more fun, which is what people come to a card room to do.
that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
We're here to have
Yeah.
fun, right? So the thing is that if like I remember this forever ago when I first kind of get into live games and stuff, and you just made so much more money when the table was laughing. Like everybody's laughing, having a good time. You're just going to make more money, and they're not going to dislike you for taking their money. But that's another soft skill, right? Like if you stack somebody and they know that it's in play, and they have a theoretical shot of getting it back and other stuff going along, that goes a long way. It's like a brand new somebody that's brand new, right? Here's another soft skill I think like. So if I'm at a table and there's somebody that's a brand new player, and it's very obvious this person is brand new, maybe the first time they've ever played live poker at a casino, doesn't even know how to handle chips, things like that. I'm not going to try to scalp them for their $80, right? There's going to be a spot where I might not value bet as thin as I know I should be here on the river to try to get them for their $40, because in the long run, I want them to come back. I want them to have a great time, because I think my skills will garner me more money in the long term than the $40 they have in front of them there. If they have a bad day, they don't ever come back to the casino. Well, that's part of revenue stream that's gone, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. My brain isn't programmed that way, Nick. And as you taught me many moons ago, like I'm programmed to just try to like defeat your enemies. Like what's that Conan thing? Like, uh, but like that's what I'm programmed to do. So like the idea of like taking it easy on somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, like I kind of flip a switch and I go, I'm going to wreck this person, and that's not necessarily good for the table. And maybe that's actually hurt me in some different spots down the road that maybe I just wasn't even aware about. But Nick, how do you kind of navigate aggression versus like the health of the game?
Yeah, it's interesting because like I would say very early in my career I was a little bit more of a headset guy, but kind of what Paul was talking about, like it wasn't genuine. Like I'm somebody that does like to be a little more social at the table. I like to talk to the dealers. I like to get the table to where it's as far away from toxic as possible, right? And so like when I see players berating others for how they play, when you do get the headset guys and like we said, like it's if they're quiet, they're respectful, they're just playing, like that's fine. But you can't have too much of that. Like your table needs some kind of balance. And if you don't have that balance of personalities, like you would rather just have like everybody there to have a good time. But as far as, navigating like how aggressive am I putting the gas pedal down? Like am I in gear 5 if there's 5 gears, like every single hand every time? Maybe not exactly. Like I think I used to think like that more, but there's little things you can do. For example, like, and this might seem like silly to some of you guys, but when a situation gets brought up where, let's say, and Tony and I have talked about this, where it gets folded around to the blinds and you can offer a chop, right? Before I used to be basically like, I will either always chop or I'll always play, though, because I don't like the idea of I'm just conveniencing like the other guy whenever it's best for him. Like it's like he gets to put money in when he wants to, basically. But now it's like, I mean, you can still have that mindset. I think if your room is a little more transient, like if there's people in and out, like they're from out of town or whatever. But if you play with the same guys over and over, the same regulars, and kind of what Paul you were talking about, Tony, what you were alluding to as well, that like that's your clientele at the end of the day, and you want them to come back and you want them to have a good time and you want them to feel comfortable losing to you more often than not. Because like if you go through Arch City Poker and you play the way that we're essentially like getting you or like teaching you guys how to play and how to think about the game, you're going to win against these guys way more often than not. And so like, if you're continuously beating their brains in, you got to get to a point where they're okay with that. And so what I do in that example I was alluding to now is like, I tell these guys, I don't care, whatever you need. If you want to try to hit your little high hand or whatever, I'll put the money in. Like there's little concessions that I'll make. I take it now as far as like there might be a few times in a week where I could have the seat change button and I could move to like I can make the obvious move even in like I don't know, to like some of the guys that are just not as aware, I guess. Like they'll still even notice though, like when you're trying to be like in shark mode and you're trying to get to like a guy's left or whatever. I don't even do that as often as I could now because I think it's just really predatory. Like I think it is kind of like a form of bum hunting. And so I try to make little concessions in the game here or there. And I think as long as you're respectful and you're having genuinely like a good time with the guys, and like Paul said, like you're just being yourself. I don't think that they mind that they lose to you more often than not. And so yeah, there's little things we can do to kind of make little concessions, like I said. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, am I still trying to mostly make the most that I can, of course, especially doing it for a living, like, of course, but you don't have to be an asshole about it because I think that a lot of guys in this industry, and Paul, you can attest to this, like playing for as long as you have and being back in the online days and like with the chat box stuff that can happen, like, yeah, there's a lot of ego. There's like a lot of like guys just trying to show like they're better than the other guy, and you can win and lose with class, and I don't think enough guys do that, to be honest. But hopefully you have some regulars that you respect each other and it'll all work out. But yeah, I think definitely making some concessions here or there to where like maybe you take the foot off the gas just a little bit in some spots, and it doesn't have to be necessarily with like sizings or how you play. It could be little things around and off the table, like within the room as well.
Yeah, I know when I was playing in Vegas maybe a month or two ago, sometime in March, but I forget what room I was playing in. I think it was the Win. And playing 2-5 or 5-10, I can't remember what I was doing, but there was like a handful of people who would get up and walk around the tables and look at the card reader, like who's like a member of the club or whatever, and to see like who was a tourist and who was a regular. And if they were a tourist, they would try to table change there. And I picked up on it right away, and I was like, fucking like bring it. But if I was like a newbie or like traveling in from some like California, I'm just there to play cards, I'm having fun, that can be like intimidating or just kind of like brutal and like make them not want to come back. And I never really thought about it till like even we're having this conversation. I'm like, well, that was quite the experience. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many different things that can drive the action of a table. And Paul, you have the unique gift of having a gift for gab, but then you can back it up with solid poker skills. And you run like the rest of us. You have as many good hands as bad hands as we do. And how do you balance trying to give action and having people give you action when you're not maybe running particularly well, or maybe you're not getting all the hands that you know are particularly strong, but you're trying to kind of reciprocate what people are providing you? How do you deal with that, Paul?
Well, I think the biggest point is that as someone that's approaching the game as a for-profit player, right? I'm not a pro. I mean, I've dabbled where it's been my only income for small periods of time, but I'm definitely not a long-term poker pro. But I do play the game for profit. Is that we have to understand that poker's a zero-sum game, so we have to bring value to the table for what we're taking back. I mean, it's kind of a bigger thing in life. I'm kind of a hippie in that whole, yin yang kind of thing. We give what we get. But you have to just bring some value. So if I'm kind of card dead and not running well, I'm going to try to offer value by joking around. Like, hopefully I have somebody at the table like Nick, who I'm just going to pick on incessantly. So the other guys at the table, because I know he's not going to mind, right? And I know the other guys at the table are going to laugh and joke, and maybe I'm not bringing the value as opposed to putting my chips in the pot or something like that. But I'm still going to try to bring the value of what's going on. Nick broached on this subject earlier, and I really think it's a big one. Is that the fact that, especially if you're a for-profit player, you are responsible for the integrity of the game. So if somebody is being a total dickhead to somebody, it's your responsibility to make that stop.
Yeah.
Because you can take the brunt of it, right? Because you have a skill edge, and so you're obviously doing it, and that's part of bringing your value. Like if someone is berating a dealer, you stop it right now, because the dealer doesn't stand to yell at that person, because then you don't make any money. They're there to make a living. So it's your job, I think, as a for profit player, to look at the integrity of the game, take care of the people at the game, make sure that everyone is having as fun as they are. Do I have fun sessions every time? Absolutely not. No, I mean, I can tilt like a crazy person sometimes, and just be angry. And the funny thing is that sometimes my customers like that too. They like seeing me, they like seeing me go crazy, and I slip my chips all over the table, and I'm going nuts, and that's something long term. But the thing is, that's just another thing of me just being genuine, right? That's literally who I am. I mean, I'm a human being, and as much as I want to rationalize what hands I should be playing and how I should be playing them here, or they should never have 3-7 in this spot in a 4-bet pot, but somehow they do. I'm going to be, it's going to tilt me sometimes. It's just what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
But you just have to offer that value in some way or another. But also back to the thing is, like, you just have to be genuine about it. Like if you're not a social or really talkative person, and you're just not getting hands, maybe you just look out to try to be polite. How about when you get up to go to the bathroom and you grab a bottle of water from, the server or something, maybe you grab a few and bring a couple bottles of water back to the table. Just little things like that. It's just basically the sparks of being a good human being,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the value that you're bringing to a game. And, you're looking at it as one long session. So just saying it's like one session that's not, I'm not getting cards and I'm not being the value that I have and splashing around enough. It just doesn't matter, because you think about it, especially if you're reg and it's especially your same spot you play at a long time. People see you. They're going to remember the 93 other times that you put some money in the pot, as opposed to the 7 times that you had to fold just because you were just card dead that time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I actually haven't looked at it that way. Is maybe it's my job as like an ambassador to ensure that my tables are healthy and my tables are maybe protected from perhaps the real kind of degenerates that kind of exist in the poker world. But yeah, Nick, I really
Tony,
hadn't thought about that.
Tony, I was going to tell you, that means the next time that somebody opens their mouth, you gotta knock them out, basically. That's what we're saying.
he stacked me again. So yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I really thought about it that way. That's an interesting way to think about it. When
I just think we have, if we're taking value, right, because obviously we're trying to win as much money as we can. We still have to protect them in some ways, right? As players, we have to protect the game. We have to protect the people. We can't allow stuff to happen when people angle shoot. Obviously, when we've been playing the game as long as we have, you start playing more and more. You start seeing these angles. You're gonna see them happening. Just stop it. Just stop it. Like, look, I don't care who you are, who you think you are. We're not playing these games here, right? And then everyone else respects you for that.
Yeah, and then I'll add to Paul's point too about how, like, I think dealers are definitely included on this, where I'll give an example, and you guys are going to know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say her name, but she goes by Super Hot Chocolate sometimes. And she's very by the book with how she deals. And so it's perceived that she's like being a jerk at the table and running like a really tight ship, when like the other dealers, to be candid, are a little more lenient. And so it's going to look like she's just not there to have as much fun, like she's just there on a power trip type of thing. These guys, a lot of the time, and I've seen this, and this isn't just our room, this is a lot of rooms with dealers, where like I think people feel, I don't know if like entitled is the right word, but like I think they feel that like when a dealer's in the box, it's like, well, they're here to deal the cards and that's it, and like it's our game or whatever. But like, look, if, just as Paul said, like if we don't have as like players that are playing for profit, if we don't have players returning customers, we don't have a game. Similarly, if we don't have dealers that at least somewhat enjoy being there and at least feel that they're respected, then we don't have a game. And so these guys they'll talk their shit like when she leaves, and like I've had to step up a couple times and be like, guys, like you can't get mad at her for doing her job just because the others aren't doing the job correctly. Like I understand that like in your home games or wherever, like it's a little bit of a looser environment, but like you need to understand that she's getting paid to do the job as she's doing it. Like, and so it's just another example where like, yes, I think that you need to step up if you're a for-profit player, and like you need to be able to protect some of the players, like speak up if like somebody's berating somebody. And you know, I think at first, like I'll let somebody try to take care of themselves, like it's their thing, like as two adults or whatever. But like if there's any semblance, in my opinion, when I've, you know, been there for these moments where it's going to make the table toxic and it's going to ruin the game, especially if it was like already a good game. Like we need to step in there, especially if the dealer's not stepping up. You got to step in there, and you probably got to say something. You can do it in a respectful way. If it gets bad enough, like get the floor over. But I do think that, yeah, there's any like starting with the little things and then stepping up all the way to like actually saying something and stepping in there. Like we got to protect the other players that are in there, and then our dealers as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's really great food for thought, and I think it's not done enough at the tables. Certainly not by myself. So maybe that's something that I can even work on my game. Always learning is what I have to think about. So Paul, when you're playing at the table and you're creating action, you're driving the way maybe people play. You're trying to keep your business, your customers happy, so to speak. And we're going to talk about like strategy, the idea of strategy. Kind of like, where is your game at? What are you thinking about when you're in a hand? Is there a system you go through? Is there a thought process? Is there in position, out of position thought? Kind of how are you approaching a hand, or like in any game, whether it's PLO, whether it's in a tournament, whether it's in a traditional live low stakes game? Kind of Paul, what does your thought process look like when you're involved in a hand?
I mean, it depends on the game, really, and it depends on who's at the table. You know, if I'm playing with seven other, regs and good players and stuff like that, I'm not slashing around. I'm not doing the stuff. I'm trying to play very tight aggressive. Probably playing three better fold. Kind of all those strategies that come along that are probably what profitable plays are, and it's exactly the same thing Arch City Poker is trying to inform everybody about. But if I'm playing with some weaker players, some fun players, some action players, first off, I'm looking at position first, because I'm not going to give them I'm not going to give them too much crazy action out of position, because that just leads to absolute disaster. I mean, even playing very good hands out of position is difficult, as we all know. So looking at in position to see what's going on, to see what's happening. I'm also looking at what our recent history's been, right? So I don't want to think about what happened last Wednesday at 6 p.m. I want to think about the last like 10, 15 hands. Have I been three betting them a lot lately? Screwing around and then showing them a couple good hands, and then maybe one time I three bet them and I show them the six of clubs, and then I go about my day. So I'm going to think about some of those recent hands and see what's going on. Obviously, I'm going to go for, if I think that he thinks that I'm kind of full of it a lot lately, like I'm going to go really big and pretty thin with value. So, I mean, there's going to be spots like that where I might take an absolutely egregious size for a four bet. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
say Nick opens up, and then some mouth breather in the middle that's fun, having a blast, decides to three bet him, and then I look down at aces and they cut off. I might just go 15x. Yeah, just something crazy,
Mm.
because obviously I think he has a hand, right? Because he three bet, and I think their biggest mistakes are not three betting enough, right? They're too passive free, so they have a hand. And also, I've been kind of slashing around, and I've been putting my money in. So now I'm just going to go egregiously large with some of my four bet sizes, or three bet sizes, or ridiculous value bets on the river. Um, and then to go from there with the profit size now. And also, if I'm trying to 3-bet somebody or play games, I might mess around. Like, so I say I 3-bet the 10-9 suited, from in position. And then that player decides to say he checks dark. I might check dark too. Say, let's see a turn. Because I know all my value is going to be coming on turn and river anyways, right? So then I get to see what he does on the turn. So when they lead small, now I get to go after it. And all right, I'm just going to win this pot for pure aggression now. Now he bets big. I miss the flop. I'm just going to muck. And I'll say, you got me this time. And I'm going to show him the 9 and say, I'm always 3-betting you light, crazy stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you do a really good job, though, of like blending in, like developing an image and then utilizing exploitative poker and just maximizing what that image looks like. And that's as you were talking about with Nick, like what a soft skill is to create an image for yourself that is actiony, that is fun to be with, fun to play with, but at the same time, kind of on the back end, you are also manipulating the way that you are perceived, and the way in which you play your hands works right into that. Nick, is that something that you've ever done, or is that maybe something that Paul is particularly good with?
Nick's pretty good.
I think Paul is somebody that, like, we've known each other for a while, and I definitely have taken, I notice like the soft skills come into play, and that's where, like, I think that once I had already at that point, before I even met him, kind of gave up like the headphones, so to speak. But I think then, like you said, Tony, we're always learning. We're always trying to improve. And I think that finding ways to incorporate the soft skills, to incorporate some of the little concessions, like we said, where it's like giving a little action, maybe showing, like, I'm not like a big shower of my cards, but I think there are moments where it makes a ton of sense. And especially if, like, I think it's one of those things where, like, if you're trying to like get the table to open up and have a little more fun for the sake of not just yourself, but for everybody. Like, we talked about this where, like, you have to bring value. And so it's not like, okay, I'll play the show one game and like I've told my table before, there'll be sessions where, like, I'm going to show one card. If I don't get to showdown, I will show one of my cards and let one of you pick every single time. Like, I'm making that concession. Like, I'm going to give you guys the info, because I know they're not going to be able to do much with it, but like, it's just a way to be like, make the table, like, make it more fun, like, make myself not Mr. Professional, like, make myself more accessible, more relatable, if you will. And so, yeah, Tony, I've definitely done like little things here or there depending on the game. If there's a game where I don't think I have to do as much, and like the guys are just like, they're going to play with me no matter what, like, yeah, I might not do as much of that stuff, but I think there's definitely room to make the little concessions that we kind of already alluded to, and definitely to help open the rest of the table up. Not, again, just for our own sake, though, like just for the sake of the game, for the table, to just make it better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. Again, that's another skill. I think that it's probably a weaker area that I have, because I get so locked in. Like, it's almost not like, the only other people who like to play against that are people who like to have iron sharpen against iron. Like, they want a challenge, so like they'll engage with me more than the casual player will, for sure. So,
and Tony, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'll give you credit that you and I have played together enough ever since you've moved, up this way. And I, like, at first, like, we've had, honest conversations about that, where I'm like, I think you should take the headphones off some of the time, and try to chat it up with some of the guys that you've gotten to know. And you've done a good job of that. Like, I think that you're not like going out of your way to do it where it would be inauthentic, like Paul was alluding to, but like, you will converse enough that they're like, oh, there's Tony. Like, we know he's a nice guy. Like, they know they can have like a simple conversation with you. And yeah, they know you're there to crack their skulls open, but they're okay with it, because you're not only there for that, as far as like how it's being perceived now. So I think that, yes, it's probably like a weaker part of your game, but I don't think it's necessarily something that's like definitely like a detriment, like it would have been in the very beginning, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's I remember we played a game that had like 4 different Johns or something at it. I forget what it was. But that was a pretty fun time. That was an example of having a table that was just really fun to be at, even if I wasn't doing particularly well.
Right.
The last question I want to have, and I think this is like different for the way everybody approaches it, but I just kind of also wanted to get your opinion, Paul, but it's the topic of tilt. how do you handle tilt? Have you experienced it? What triggers it? What do you think about tilt? And have you ever tilted before? How do you address it? Or what do you think? Tell me about the topic of tilt.
Sometimes just a nice light breeze will tilt me. I'll go monkey tilt. Well, and that's another thing about what I go with the persona, and I talk about being genuine, because when I am tilted, like I said, we're we're the villain. Everybody's hand histories. We're the villain. Like, they don't say we're the hero. We're the villain, right? You say history. Villain three bets me here. Villain does this, right? So sometimes people like to see the villain go down in a ball of flames, and it's just me being genuine. I mean, there's no doubt about it. That is the weakest part of my game. When it's funny that the strongest part of my game is being able to splash around and talk to people and listen to them. So I don't wear headphones, because when I talk to them, I'm listening to what they have to say, because I'm gleaning who they are as a person, right? So I'm gleaning from them how they think about a hand, or how they think about the food here. What kind of person are they? So are they risk adverse, right? Oh, I wouldn't try that pizza. No, it does never look good. So, I mean, to me, like, that guy might be a little risk adverse. He doesn't want to try pizza. Like, it's pizza. It's always, but, but when it comes to the topic of tilt, like, it's really, for me, it's my biggest enemy. I have to get away, take away from the table. I have to go take a walk. Sometimes I just have to let it out, like the rah, to kind of get through it.
Like, what tilts you though? Is it losing a hand you feel like you should have won? Is it somebody making a card that was a one outer? Like, what is it?
No,
Anything?
it's all my mistakes. That's what
Oh,
tilt me the most.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean, obviously, occasionally, like, you're playing an enormous pot and you've just been getting kicked in the head all day, and now you've rebought and you're down 6 buy-ins, and now you're playing a 7 buy-in pot, and someone hits a one outer. Like, yeah, that's going to take the wind out of your sails and put you on
Hmm.
tilt for a while. I mean, that's just natural. But most things that tilt me are when I make egregious errors, when I just completely misread the situation and what's going on, and I can just go back and look. There were the signs here. Like, the signs were here. This guy hasn't played a hand for 3 hours, and I decided to four bet him white. Like, what am I doing? This is just the dumbest thing in the world,
Yeah, that sounds like
And
me. Right strategy, wrong
Yeah, I was gonna
person.
say I know who that sounds like, but yeah.
I
it's
understand.
like, what am I doing? Or when sometimes when the other thing that tilts me sometimes is that, because of my crazy wild image sometimes in certain games, I know the counter to that is me making big folds as a weapon, right?
Yeah.
Because when they finally play back at me, they have it. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm just going at them, and they're playing it by a line, like, they're just waiting. Like, I'm gonna catch them. I'm gonna catch them. I'm gonna catch them. And then when they finally do, and they play back at me, I'm willing to make some big folds. All three of us talked about a hand that I played a while back with aces, and I made an enormous fold that I thought was right, and I basically had the guy almost dead for basically an 8 buy-in pot. So that tilted me pretty good.
Yeah. Well,
But
those are hard.
in the moment, I thought I was right, but it is what it is. But
Yeah, and I think actually I had a different opinion about the hand than I think Nick did, but I think as long as
yeah,
you
you did.
have decisions behind, like reasoning behind your decisions, I as long as it's justified, I don't think that there's really a bad play as long as we can justify why something happened and it makes sense. Like, we're not just like doing super ridiculous things and being like, well, he had aces. Like, well, did he? Like, let's break it down. But yeah, Nick, when you tilt, when's the last time you tilted, Nick? You're kind of like a robot when you play a little bit as far as emotions go.
Yeah, I mean, no, there's definitely moments where I would say these days it doesn't happen too often, but I will say that it probably comes in the form of a little more aggressive in a couple spots than I probably should or need to be. Like when Paul mentioned, like for example, like I four bet this guy light when like it just never was going to be the right play. Like I don't know if I'm going that egregious with it these days, but I think there are some spots where it's like my tendency or like if it were a leak would be to lean like aggressive. I think the biggest thing with tilt, and I've talked about this a lot on this platform with a ton of guys that I've worked with one-on-one is, and Paul kind of like mentioned it without maybe even realizing it, but he'll understand what I'm saying. Where like, I think being aware that it's happening or aware that it's about to come on is like a big skill to develop, to be honest. Like, I think a lot of guys get caught up in it and they might not even like really know they're tilting until it's too late and like they've punted off in some fashion. I think being aware that you're starting to get a little too emotional though at the table, like logic has been taken over by that. That's like a huge skill to have because I mean, there are tons of guys that I think are smart humans and like they could be really good poker players and they might be really good. Like there's guys that I've known that have played for income that I think were very good exploitative players. Like I think that they were very technically, like some of them might even be really technically sound on the table, but the tilt is what basically destroyed them. And I think Paul would attest to that. Like, I mean, I think a lot of you guys that are even like listening right now, to be honest, are like, you know, you guys are having a guest on and a lot of you might ask like, well, how is he qualified to talk about this stuff? Or how, if you guys don't know Tony or I as professionals, and I'm here to tell you that I've been on this platform in this industry long enough that he is more than qualified and he's correct that tilt would be like, you know it, Paul, like your biggest thing, like you are technically good enough to play professional, like a professional style of poker. But for the vast majority of you, this is where your biggest leak will be is definitely tilting. And tilt comes in all different forms. We've talked about that a lot on whether it's previous podcast episodes or on this platform or over on the site. But yeah, Tony, just to wrap this up, like there's definitely still moments where I feel it coming on now more these days, more than like I actually tilt at the table. And so like Paul said, I'll go do a couple laps like around the casino. I'll just step away basically. Like I can feel it coming on. Whereas maybe like 10, 12 years ago, it might have overtaken me a little bit to where like I am now increasing the 3-bet frequency, or like I'm opening 6-5 suited under the gun in a 100 big blind high rate game, like type of thing. Like it's stuff like that that it might not seem like a big deal in the moment, but those compound and like they snowball a lot of the time. And so I've learned to kind of feel and be self-aware of like when it's more emotional, or like when it's an ego thing. It's like, oh, that guy like just windmilled the bluff in my face. Like that would have got me a little bit more just as a competitor more than it does now, where I'm like, you know what, that was probably good for the game that he showed that. And like that's how I kind of think of it now. Like you try to be like glass half full. I think it's more that. So yeah, I think it's being able just to sense it coming on, Tony. So like, yeah, I'm human just like anybody. Like and there's moments where I start to feel like a little pissy, but then I will, just step away for a few minutes and then come back and I feel refreshed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I never tilt. All right, I never tilt. No.
Yeah, we know. You're just a fish.
Yeah, I can beat 2-5 and higher. I cannot beat 1-2, 1-3. That's
yes, right. You are 2-5. You are our 2-5 specialist, but God, don't ask him for 1-3 advice.
They respect your raises up there, Tony. That's where they at.
But yeah, all right, everybody, that's going to wrap up episode 27 of the Arch City Poker podcast. And as we kind of part here, Nick, do you have any final words to share?
None. Paul, thanks for being on. It was a lot of fun. I think it was a good change of pace for this podcast. And if you guys want to see more of this, if you want to see more of Paul, then just let us know in the comment section, and we'll be happy to try to make this happen again. But yeah, man, really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we can have you on again soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. You know, like I said, I talked to you about it, and I just wanted to come on here because I know that both of you are just leaps and bounds better technical player than me. But like, you know, most of the people in my room, I would bet 50% of the people in the room that we play in don't even think that I'm a profitable player. Like they just have no idea that, you know, that I actually am, you know, probably winning 20 big blinds, you know, an hour. they just have no clue because of what's going on. But that's where my set's there, and I think that people should know that there are more ways to skin a cat, right? But the thing is, if you want to be that kind of exploitative player where you're building on things in a game, you have to learn the fundamentals and you have to learn the baseline to get to it. So come see at Arch City, and they'll definitely help you out there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, again, I'm going to echo what Nick said, and that's just thanking you for taking the time. I know that this was a kind of long ways in the making, so thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being as awesome as you are, and hopefully in the future we can certainly do this again sooner rather than later. But
Sounds good.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up episode 27. Head on over to archcitypoker.com if you're brand new. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on Spotify, go ahead and click the YouTube video or go on YouTube and follow us, like, share, and subscribe. Well, you'll get updates on all the new content because we don't only have this podcast, but we have hand history analysis, and we'll take hands that you have played as a listener and we'll review it and we'll deep dive and dissect it and identify the good, the bad, the ugly, and maybe you played it perfectly and you're just awesome. But we want to give you your praises too. So again, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll catch you again next week. Take care.